If rich people told you exactly how they stay rich, most people wouldn't call it wisdom. They'd call it unfair. Because somewhere between motivational quotes and just work harder, we convinced ourselves that wealth is simply the reward for effort. It isn't. Plenty of people work hard. Nurses work hard. Construction workers work hard. Single parents working 2 jobs work hard. Hard work might get you exhausted. It doesn't automatically make you wealthy. And here's the truth nobody puts on the front cover of self-help books. Getting rich and staying rich are 2 entirely different games. One is about acceleration. The other is about survival. One gets applause. The other gets inherited. And the rich rarely explain the second game. Not because it's illegal, not because it's hidden, but because if they said it out loud, it would force everyone else to admit that money isn't just earned. It's managed, protected, positioned, and sometimes withheld. Today, we're talking about the things the rich never tell you about how they stay rich. And some of these truths might irritate you, which is usually how you know they're worth listening to. Most people ask, how much can I make? Rich people ask, how much can I afford to lose? It sounds less exciting. Because nobody becomes an Instagram guru by saying, guys, today's secret to wealth is avoiding catastrophic mistakes. Benjamin Graham, in The Intelligent Investor, built an entire philosophy around this idea. Don't lose. Then don't lose again. Annie Duke, in Thinking in Bets, argued that successful decision-makers aren't obsessed with being right. They're obsessed with staying in the game long enough for probability to work in their favor. The average person bets like they're in a casino. The wealthy often invest like they're crossing a minefield. Slowly, carefully, repeatedly asking, what could destroy me? Because bankruptcy doesn't care how smart you are. One reckless business expansion, one ego-driven investment, one debt-fueled lifestyle, and suddenly you're a motivational speaker talking about starting over. The first rule of staying rich: survive. Because you can't compound what you've lost. Here's one of the strangest things about wealth. The richer people become, the more obsessed they become with time. Not watches. Time. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Most people hear luxury and imagine yachts, private jets, designer clothes. The rich hear luxury and think, I don't have meetings on Fridays. I can pick my kids up from school. I can walk away from people I don't like. Edward Chancellor, in The Price of Time, explored how the value of time shapes entire economies. Because wealth isn't just money stored in a bank account. It's future choices. It's the ability to say no. Meanwhile, everyone else is financing status symbols to impress strangers they'll never see again. A £5,000 watch to signal success. A luxury car to sit in traffic. A house so expensive they have to keep working jobs they hate just to afford it. Luxury isn't the watch. Luxury is deciding what your Tuesday looks like. And that truth is annoyingly difficult to post on Instagram. Here's an uncomfortable one. People don't do what they believe. People do what they're rewarded for. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. So did the authors of The Dictator's Handbook. The book argues that power isn't maintained through good intentions. It's maintained by understanding incentives. Why do companies do things customers hate? Because the incentives allow it. Why do politicians make strange decisions? Incentives. Why do employees suddenly become team players when bonuses are involved? Incentives. Rich people understand that if you want to predict behavior, stop listening to speeches. Follow rewards. Because incentives explain more human behavior than personality ever will. Hard truth. Many people don't have money problems. They have incentive problems. They keep rewarding short-term pleasure and punishing long-term discipline, and then wonder why their future keeps arriving broke. By the way, if this video is making you slightly uncomfortable, good. That's usually how you know you're learning something schools forgot to teach. So if you're the kind of person who enjoys having expensive illusions ruined with evidence, dark humor, and the occasional existential crisis, hit subscribe. Because there are easier channels to watch. Channels that'll tell you manifestation is a financial strategy. This just isn't one of them. And if you've made it this far, drop a quick like. Not for me. For the algorithm. Because somewhere out there, someone is about to finance a lifestyle they can't afford just to impress people they secretly dislike. And honestly, they deserve an intervention. Now, let's continue. Compounding isn't just financial. It's social. Warren Buffett once said, "It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it." The Outsiders studied exceptional CEOs who generated extraordinary returns. One recurring theme: trust, consistency, long-term relationships. The average person networks like a salesperson. What can you do for me? The wealthy often think differently. How can I become someone useful enough that people remember me? Because opportunities don't usually arrive through job boards. They arrive through conversations, recommendations, quiet introductions, the room you aren't in discussing you. Your network isn't powerful because famous people know your name. It's powerful because ordinary people trust your character. That's harder to build and infinitely more valuable. This one hurts because almost nobody wants to hear it. Many wealthy people don't look wealthy. Thomas Stanley found this repeatedly. The people with real money often drove practical cars, lived below their means, avoided financial theatre. Meanwhile, people with modest incomes were spending aggressively, trying to appear successful. Because looking rich and being rich are often opposites. One requires spending, the other requires restraint. The fastest way to look rich? Buy liabilities. The fastest way to stay rich? Stop auditioning for strangers. Because strangers rarely pay your mortgage.
but they'll happily applaud while you sabotage your future.
Charlie Munger once observed, "The big money is not in the buying and selling, but in the waiting." Waiting. The least glamorous word in finance. Nobody makes documentaries about patience. Nobody films motivational montages about leaving investments alone for 20 years. Because boredom doesn't trend. Action does. Most fortunes aren't destroyed through bad luck. They're destroyed through unnecessary movement. Changing strategies every month. Chasing trends. Mistaking activity for progress. Most people would rather do something stupid than nothing intelligent. Because patience feels unproductive, even when it's profitable. Hard truth. Overactivity often disguises itself as ambition. The sovereign individual made a prediction decades ago. In the future, ownership would matter more than labour. And we're living through it. Employees trade time for money. Owners build systems that continue working without their presence. This doesn't mean everyone should quit their jobs tomorrow. It means understanding the distinction. Shares, businesses, intellectual property, real estate, royalties, equity. Ownership changes the conversation, because eventually you realize something uncomfortable. You can spend your entire life working for money, or you can own the things money works for. One creates income, the other creates leverage. Most people think until payday. Some think until next year. The wealthy often think in decades. Francis Bacon said, "Money is a great servant, but a bad master." Because short-term thinking creates expensive decisions, impulsive purchases, emotional investing, lifestyle inflation. Long-term thinking asks different questions. Will this matter in 10 years? What kind of life am I building? What habits am I reinforcing? What trade-offs am I accepting? Because wealth isn't built in dramatic moments. It's built through repeated ordinary decisions. And ordinary decisions become extraordinary outcomes when given enough time. The market rewards patience. Reality rewards consistency. And the future belongs disproportionately to people willing to delay gratification long after it stops being fashionable. Here's the truth the rich almost never say out loud. Staying rich isn't sexy. It's repetitive. It's saying no more often than yes. It's avoiding stupid mistakes. It's refusing to perform success for strangers. It's protecting time, understanding incentives, building trust, being patient, choosing ownership, thinking longer. Most people assume wealth disappears because of bad luck. More often, it disappears because people confuse income with wealth, appearance with security, attention with achievement. If you got this far, chances are you don't just want more money. You want options, freedom, the ability to decide what your life looks like. And maybe that's the real definition of wealth. Not having everything, but having enough control
that your choices actually belong to you.
Before you go, do 3 things. First, like this video if at least one of these truths made you pause and rethink how the game actually works. Second, subscribe if you'd rather understand wealth than simply admire it from a distance. Every week we take the uncomfortable truths nobody likes discussing, strip away the cliches and figure out what actually matters. No rented Lamborghinis, no fake urgency, no buy my course before midnight. Just honest conversations about money, psychology, status, power, and the hidden rules shaping our lives.
And finally, comment below. Which truth irritated you the most? The one that felt unfair? Or the one you secretly knew was true? I read every single comment. And sometimes the most honest answers are the ones that teach us the most. Until next time, stay curious, stay dangerous, and stop playing games designed for spectators.